Hello everyone, Dan here from the Next Issue Podcast. On today's video, I'll be doing a review for Batman 144. This is the last part of Joker Year 1. Let's take a look at the creative team before we get into the book. This book is written by Chip Zdarsky with art by Giuseppe Camuncoli and Andrea Sorrentino, Stefano Nessi on inks, Alejandro Sanchez and Dave Stewart on colors, letters by Clayton Cowles. So as I mentioned, this is the last part of Joker Year 1. You know, interestingly enough, this is not really a Joker origin story. I think as many people had kind of um as many people kind of went into this like, we don't need a Joker origin story, and that's not what this was at all. So, let's talk about this specific issue. The chilling conclusion to Joker Year 1, the climactic chilling conclusion to this event that will have massive repercussions for the future. The Red Hood gang is on a rampage, and the only man who can stop them is the Joker. And can Batman stop a devastating new virus in the future where the Joker looms over him? So yeah, we have Andres Sorrentino doing the future timeline. We have Giuseppe Camuncoli doing the year one timeline, where we look back, and it's really the Red Hood gang hunting down the Joker and wreaking havoc all across Gotham, as you saw in the cover. GCPD, Gotham Police Department, is attacked. Meanwhile, in the future, Batman is trying to deal with not only protecting the Bat family that's been infected with this virus, but also stopping the Joker. And this Joker it almost feels like the final evolution of Joker in the future, where he has even become more of an entity, more of a different power. So, and I think Sorrentino's pencils and inks really work on that. So let's take a look at some of the preview art here. Just the heavy inks, the heavy, the lack of color, except for the green, the green text, I think really makes a very cool distinction here. But yeah, Sorrentino is really good at this type of mood and tone and setting. I think also really cool designs for these infected, Jokerized Bat fam members. Also, really cool insight into. Obviously, we have Batman, but this is what I'm thinking is Damian Wayne as an adult, carrying on with the legacy. We still have Nightwing. We still see other Robins. Yeah, so it's really interesting, really cool approach. And then to contrast that with the past timeline where we see Year One, with Kamenkoli's more like his pencils are a lot lighter. His pencils are a lot more stylized, in a different tone than Sorrentino's, and of course the coloring just completely different palette. So very cool distinction between the two storylines. I found the conclusion, uh, although it took me a second to kind of process everything that had happened because you do cut back and forth between timelines. I found it to be really, really cool. Like, I'm very excited for the future of this. I've seen the cover for the next issue, and it just looks really interesting. So super on board with this storyline. I think that Chip Zdarsky is doing something that if you got in it from the beginning and you had fun with that, you're gonna continue to have fun with a lot of this stuff. So hello, everyone. Daniel here from the Next Issue Podcast. On today's video, I'll be doing a review for Batman Superman World's Finest number 24. This is the conclusion of the current arc. So let's take a look at the creative team before we get into it. This is written by Mark Waid with Dan Moore on art, Tamara Von Vellen on colors, letters by Steve Wands. I've mentioned this before, and I'll mention it over and over again. I think Mark Waid and Dan Mora are two of the strongest teams in. They're some of the strongest teams right now, as far as comic book. This is a very cool issue. So let's talk about this specific one. Return to Kingdom Come finally comes to an end with no way back to their own Earth. Will Superman and Batman have to witness the tragic events that led to Cataclysm, or are they fated to take the place of their doppelgangers? So, yeah, as you remember in the last issue, Darkseid showed up, which is like, what the fuck? Like that was the coolest thing that could happen, I think, in this world, and it only gets even better from this issue. I think Mark Waid is really cool. Like he just has a really good um, pencil, we'll say, to write these stories in a very fun way, bringing in just these characters that really make a lot of sense, and weaving them into the history of the characters. Obviously, revisiting the world of Kingdom Come is just such a bold move, but I think they've really executed it perfectly. And it's really fun to see, especially with Dan Mora's pencils being so different from Alex Ross in that epic, but he still manages to capture the feel of that world. I think that Dan Mora, you can tell, definitely a big fan of this world. So you can really tell there's a lot of love and care and attention to detail here. We'll take a look at some of the art in a second, but there are just some really epic moments. But I think at the core of this is really Mark Wade really knows not only how to play off of the relationship routine between Superman and Batman, but all the choices that they make really feel very authentic, which I think it's tough. Sometimes, you know, characters make choices to serve the story, but in this case, they really feel like the choices the characters would make, especially in a case like this where they are kind of responsible for a whole different world. Let's take a look at some of the preview art here, and this is just epic stuff. I love the panel. So of course, seeing Darkseid show up is amazing, and I love the Dan Mora capturing everyone's reactions, right? Specifically, Batman and Superman and the doppelgangers from this Earth. Um, but then this sequence of both Superman attacking Darkseid and Darkseid just like not even feeling it, like it just it really leads you to believe that this dark side is probably one of the most powerful beings in the universe at this time. And then we get to see the Omega beams, um, and it's just like it's everything you want in a sequence. I love here the how you see the skeletons as they fall. Obviously, they're not dead because Superman can take it, but you can the impact of it visually. It's really cool, right? So yeah, there will be fallen heroes. There will be people that won't make it out of this. Um, but yeah, Darkseid just swatting Wonder Woman and the Green Lantern from this earth, like as if they were nothing. Shazam being taken out, just you know, and everything leading up to the decision. What is David gonna do? David is the one, you know. We know David as obviously David, Kid Thunder, but now we know that he's also Magog from the Kingdom Come storyline. So like what choices is he gonna make that are gonna affect the future going forward? Also, what happens after this? Like after the conclusion of the issue, what happens to our heroes that we've been following along? Yeah, World's Finest has been probably my favorite title for a long time now, and I love to talk about it. That's why I think I'm pretty sure I've reviewed every issue since it came out. So hello, everyone. Daniel here from the Next Issue Podcast. On today's video, I'll be doing a review for Superman issue number 11. So let's take a look at the creative team before we get into this book. This book is written by Joshua Williamson with art by David Baldion, colors by Rex Locus, letters by Ariana Maher, a really cool cover by Jamal Campbell. Um, Superman has had different artists a lot throughout the run, and I think each one of them really has knocked it out of the park. They've been, whoever the editing team on this book just really has picked some amazing talent. So let's talk about this issue. Introducing the Lex Luthor Revenge Squad. Lex Luthor Revenge Squad attacks. Superman is back from his blast to the past, only to find that Mr. Graft and Dr. Farm have gathered some of Lex Luthor's greatest enemies with a mission to wipe out Lex and everything he loves from Metropolis. Superman will fight to save Lex's life, but when he learns the truth about Lex's past, will he even want to? A lot of revelations here, a lot of machinations finally put into place, right? We've been following these characters. We recently met the Unchained. We know that there's a whole past here that Superman um, that everything that Lex has been doing and has done in the past. It's really interesting, first of all, but the book taking a turn and to make it about Lex Luthor instead of Superman, I think it's also very cool. Like it just feels like it really brings you into that place where you want to follow along the story. You want to know what choices Superman will make, and I think Joshua Williamson has been doing some really great work at building out that character and these antagonists too. Like they feel like the real threat, which is sometimes very hard to do. Also, how do you make Superman a lot more interesting? You make the story not only about him, but about the people that he cares about, or at least the people that he's chosen to kind of work with, which in this case is Lex Luthor. So let's take a look at some of the preview art. I don't have a lot of preview art. DC was very careful to just pick out a couple of pages because there's a lot that happens in this issue. But yeah, the full squad comes together. You figure out what their full plan is, and now that everything's into action, how will the team and how will Superman and how will Lex react to all this? Um, I love the giant panel of the Unchained attacking Superman. Of course, the faces, the expressions, like just everything really works. I think Baldion really captures the emotions that are going on in this panel. So it's very cool to see. So yeah, I'm very excited for the future of Superman. This is the first time in a long time that I've actually been um, pulling the series issue to issue. So it's really great to feel rewarded and that's paying off. Of course, Superman covers at the end of the video because Superman is one of the books that gets the most variant covers, and it makes sense. People just love. I think people just love to draw Superman, but also people love to look at beautiful art of Superman. So, hello everyone, Dan here from the Next Issue Podcast. On today's video, I'll be doing a review for Wonder Woman #6. This is a new book from DC Comics. Let's talk about the creative team before we get into this book. We have Tom King on writing duties, with art by Daniel St. Pierre, Tom Moran on colors, letters by Clayton Cowles. In this issue, her greatest foes return. Wonder Woman against her greatest foes. After thwarting each threat that the Sovereign has thrown at her, he decides to bring in the biggest guns the DCU has to offer. Let the battle royale begin. Plus, we get a Super Sun story at the end with art by Belen Ortega about bedtime going wrong. Yeah, those are really cool. The backup stories have been amazing. So make sure to read those. I'm a big fan of Ortega's art. I think she does fantastic job, especially drawing Lizzie in the most adorable ways. But let's talk about the main story of this book. Uh, all of Diana's enemies are now gathered, as we saw in the last issue. Now, we also have learned that she will have help, but in this issue, she's ambushed. I do think it's funny that Tom King is writing a lot of Washington, D.C. into the story, and I believe he lives around the area, if not in D.C. I know we have seen him post about walking his dog and stuff. So it's really cool to kind of just see like him writing this whole story happen. A lot of it happens there, right? We get to see a lot of really cool landmarks and locations, uh, and of course, great action drawn by Sam Pierre. Let's take a look at some of the preview art here. We only have a few pages. We don't have as much as normal. I think DC is being very conservative with some of these pages and previews to avoid big spoilers, but just from the get go, we see a really nice conversation. And then we see Diana's enemies make a move. I really like these 5 panels of transition of uh, Trevor going like into, just passing out from whatever the attack is, and then this giant hand coming out from the background. Like it's so cool. And this is just kind of the beginning of it. You get to see a lot more of Diana's enemies as the issue goes by. So yeah, this man, this Wonder Woman run has been so much fun. Like every single issue just really hits all the check boxes that I love. And it's made Diana, like I was already a fan of Wonder Woman, but this has just made me even more interested in how um flexible and how malleable and how this character is so versatile that you can even use it in a story like this where it's a little bit of like enemy of the state type of feel. There's a little bit of political intrigue, of course, all that wrapped up in the Amazonian Wonder Woman world. Very cool stuff, some amazing covers at the end of the video. Stay tuned for those. So hello, everyone. Dan here from the Next Issue Podcast. On today's video, I'll be doing a review for Nightwing 111. This is a new book from DC Comics. Let's take a look at the creative team before we get into this book. This book is written by Tom Taylor with art by Sammy Basri, inks by Vicente Cifuentes, and colors by Adrian Lucas. Letters by Wes Abbott, and a beautiful cover by Bruno Redondo, who has been pretty much the main artist on Nightwing, but it's really cool to see how editorial finds great artists to kind of fill in some of these gaps in between arcs, or maybe focus on separate arcs. So, in this issue, what's wrong with Nightwing? Something's very wrong with Nightwing, and it's starting to catch up to him. Can the world's greatest detective help him figure out what's going on before it's too late? Plus, there's a backup story with art by Francesco Francavilla, which is really cool, where the plague has left 14th century Europe in chaos as a young man known as the Son of Grey hunts down the men that killed his father. A story of revenge told in two parts. So make sure to stay tuned for that story at the end of the issue. But let's talk about the main story. So we have a really interesting mystery. We have a very impactful beginning. There's a killer now in Gotham City, who we believe to be heartless. And the stakes, just everything that happens in this issue builds really nicely. As I was reading this, there was a very emotional thing that kind of happens towards the middle, and the issue kind of builds up to it by bringing in, some memories by Dick Grayson and some comparisons between their relationships, and it just got really emotional, and it was really nice. And then it was just a very nice moment that I kind of started to tear up, uh, and not because it was sad, but just because of everything that was going on. Like I said, it was kind of very emotionally charged in a good way, though. I think very positively, and I think that's something that Tom Taylor brings to the page a lot. I think he's very forthright about showing and displaying emotions with these characters and exploring the relationships, whether it's Batman with Nightwing working together, Nightwing dealing with his trauma of everything that's going on with him, remembering Alfred every time Alfred shows up in a page. I think Alfred, written by Tom Taylor, is one of my favorite characters, or one of my favorite interpretations of Alfred, because I feel like Tom Taylor really understands the relationship between Alfred and all the Bat family and how big of a support he was for them. So let's take a look at the creative team, and let's take a look at the preview art, because I think Basri really captures those emotions, and it's a big part of what I found to be amazing about this issue. So let's we kick off with the heart being gone of this guy. We hear the scream, the yell, just really cool. Wes Abbott doing fantastic work with the lettering, um, and we see Batman swinging in, and of course, he's trying to solve the crime. He figures out there's still somebody around. He turns around, and it's a kid, right? It's the kid of the person who's just been murdered. And then from there, we see these flashbacks and these parallels to there's always a kid. Uh, and Batman remembers how it felt when he lost his parents. He remembers when he met Dick Grayson and he lost his parents. Um, and all that stuff, like I said, it just builds very much with drawing these parallels between Bruce and Dick and this kid, and then exploring like Dick has to deal with a lot still. Luckily, he's got a great support system. He's dating Barbara, so that's really nice to have somebody with him. And then also, Bruce and him, although they haven't had much time together recently because of everything that's going on, that's even addressed in this issue. Anytime they have a conversation, I feel like Tom Taylor writes that in a way that just feels really sincere. And then also Nightwing just being Nightwing when it comes to being there for a kid who's been a victim of a violent crime. It all just really works very well. This is I haven't been the biggest fan of anything to do with Heartless, uh, and this is probably a little bit still off the beaten path. But if we continue like this going into the story, which ironically enough, the thing that I love most in this story is the heart of the story, which is, so yeah, really cool stuff. Highly recommend it. Some amazing, amazing variants at the end of the video, so stay tuned for those. But hello, everyone. Daniel here from the Next Issue Podcast. On today's video, I'll be doing a review for Justice League versus Godzilla versus Kong, issue number 5. Let's take a look at the creative team before we get into this book. This book is written by Brian Buccellato with art by Christian Deuce, Tom Derenick on art as well, and Luis Guerrero on colors, with Richard Starkings and Jimmy Betancourt on letters. So we do have an additional artist. Christian's been doing most of the work up until now. But, I think a book like this definitely takes a lot of time, definitely takes a lot of effort. There's a lot of big pages with a lot of characters, a lot of kaijus, a lot of monsters. So let's talk about this specific issue. The cataclysmic crossover between the DC universes and Legendary Monsterverse continues. The Justice League have regrouped after the initial losses and discover nefarious plans by the Legion of Doom, and the League of Assassins are underway to use the monsters for their evil purposes. As Lois uncovers the truth about the monster's identity, the League also learns of a beacon drawing them, all the creatures, to one specific location. The final battle to save Earth is about to begin. Yeah, this issue definitely felt like a very much of a transition. Let's put all the pieces into place. And I think, I think those issues can sometimes feel a little bit not as important as some of the other ones that we've read before, but I think this is going to be a really nice 1-2 combo punch with the next issue. This definitely, it's almost as if when you pull back on a bow and arrow, and then the next issue is the release of everything, right? Uh, of course, the art team just doing fantastic work, not only with uh, setting up the characters and just having to draw so many different characters in one spot, but also just with the monsters. I think they really nailed the look. So let's take a look at some of that. So here we see Superman still recovering from his previous fight. Now, I hate that Superman's been sidelined for so long. But I mean, it makes sense in the story. It definitely makes sense as to, like, this is the one superhero you would want to focus on taking out initially. Um, because otherwise I feel like sometimes some of the other, he might have been able to wrap things up too quickly. It also raises the stakes a little bit for the story. But what I really love here is these pages of just all these creatures fighting together. Everything that's going on underwater, everything that's going on across the globe that has anything to do with the creatures. We haven't even had Godzilla or Kong in the same panel yet, which is really cool. Like, I can't wait for that. Now, I do feel like maybe the Flash is not the one that should be underwater. I don't know if he can swim really fast. Maybe he can, but it's really interesting. I feel like his talents are better used somewhere else. But as you can see, this is where the action is. Atlantis needs as many heroes as it can get. So um, this book is just kind of a blast. It's really fun. I think this is gonna read very well as a collection. So I can see if you're one of those people that have been waiting to read this. I don't blame you. Following so many monthly comics can be difficult, but on the upside, you get to see, everything up front. You get to see all these really cool covers, which we have some at the end of the video. So stay tuned for those. But yeah, this story has been so exciting. I am very, very much looking forward to what happens on the next issue, because I love these monsters. I love the Justice League. So, like, putting everything together in one place, and I can't wait for Kong to be on the same page as Godzilla. Also, there's a giant surprise towards the end of the issue, so obviously stay tuned for all that. Let me know what you thought about it. And if you have read this issue, let me know what you thought about it as a whole. As always, thank you for watching, everyone. Remember to share, like, subscribe. Stay tuned. We have more comic reviews, trailer reactions, TV recaps, all that fun stuff here in the channel. Thanks for watching, everyone. Bye bye.